Hello, everybody. Let's get my clicker. So firstly, my title is Vice President of EMEA. That's an old title that came through there somehow. Obviously, I work a lot here in Africa, and it's great to be back here in Nairobi after 2 long years of working from my bedroom, which I'm sure some of you will understand is a genuine shared experience. So what I want to talk to you briefly about today is authentication. So why should you care about authentication? It's an interesting question. I'm sure a lot of you here do. Authentication really is important insofar as protecting your end users, your customers, and preventing fraud in general. But giving your users a good customer experience is important as well. If people can't log into your application, they're not going to transact with you, simple as that. Or if it's seen as insecure, they're not going to transact with you. So how do you provide strong customer authentication, but in a seamless manner for your end users? So today I'm going to go through some of the techniques that we employ across our customer base, global customer base of about 250 organizations, mostly financial institutions, and try and give you the benefits of that in a very brief, under 9 minutes approach. So just quickly about Daon, what we provide essentially is identity verification, ongoing authentication, and contact center integration, authentication assistance, whatever you want to call it. I feel like I've spoken to probably half of you already today, so some of you have already heard this pitch, and I look forward to speaking with the other half of you over the course of the next 24 hours. We're a 20-year-old company. We've been doing this a long time. We're very mature in the fintech space, almost senior citizens compared to some of our competitors. But we're very capable and knowledgeable in authentication and biometrics is at the core of what we provide. So fraud, some figures there about fraud. I don't need to tell you guys about fraud. Fraud is rampant. How do you combat it? Well, you provide authentication. And of course, what do your customers demand? So 8 out of 10 consumers prefer easy and passwordless authentication, and that's where biometrics comes into it. What is authentication? There's 3 pillars typically. Pillar 1 or type 1, as you see there, is something your user knows. So that's typically a password. That's where we are now. Passwords they're not scalable. We all encounter them daily. None of us like them, bar the odd one, I'm sure. But type 2 then, the second pillar, is something that the user owns or holds. And that's typically like an OTP device, but more commonly these days it is your smartphone itself. It has a capability to generate OTPs, to store data in a secure element, and provide. Pillar is something you are. And that's typically a biometric or behavioral biometric, something you do in a unique way to you. So strong customer authentication or multi-factor MFA authentication typically involves 2 of those 3 types, let's say. Type 1 and type 2 is the most common we see these days, but moving to type 3 and type 2 is where we want to be. I note the last panelist spoke about pay by smile. That's most likely type 2 and type 3, so you've got a biometric, that's their face, and they're most likely doing something in the type 2 space as well, something on the device. So you've got your 2-factor authentication there. Extending multi-factor authentication when using a smartphone, if we look across to the far right, you see the blue boxes there. This is all data, capabilities that come naturally with smartphones that we can leverage to shore up and provide further assurance that your user is who they claim to be, but absolutely under the covers from their perspective. So providing additional assurance on the authentication. As we can see, this is a Gartner study. Biometrics are seen as the best in fraud prevention. They're scoring highest in fraud prevention and highest in convenience. They're all the way over on the far top right there, as opposed to the more traditional token-based or knowledge-based authentication mechanisms. And I realize I'm preaching to the choir here. Most of us have realized this, but how do we go ahead and implement it? And you might be thinking, not all biometrics is equal. I've already got a mobile banking app and it uses Face ID to log in. That's totally fine. Face ID, it has its uses, but it is a black box. All it tells you is that, yes, someone who's enrolled in the phone is authenticating. It doesn't tell you anything about the person. A typical scenario is a husband and wife may use the same phone. So who did the transaction? Where does the fraud originate? That doesn't help you with Face ID. So moving to a more server-side biometric authentication capability. Helps you deal with those problems. Also, it's no good for account recovery, and not necessarily it's the same device each time. There's no audit trail provided for looking at fraud down the stream. So we would advise Face ID is absolutely fine for logging in or low-risk operations, but you need something more comprehensive and sophisticated for larger risk transactions, like setting up beneficiaries, making payments, and so on. So then you have the quagmire of which biometric is best. Well, they're all different. They all provide pros and cons. They're all applicable to certain scenarios, but by and large, face biometrics, it has come a long way, and it's now seen as one of the strongest and obviously most accessible biometric options out there. But you can still do fingerprint biometrics, you can do voice biometrics, and you can do behavioral. If you have a platform that provides you all of those options, you can define your transaction types, your risk appetite, and apply different policies to different types of authentication scenarios. So it gives your users ultimate flexibility to choose something they like, and it gives your own internal risk, security, fraud analysis teams confidence that you're using the best of breed technologies. Face authentication, quite simply, it's just a guy taking a picture, boom, done, analyzing there, it says the authentication was successful. A lot has happened there. Liveness determination, proving that was a real person and not an image or a video or a deep fake or a mask. That has all happened in that transaction right there. Using big data analysis, deep neural networks, and very complicated technology that's seamless to the end user. I won't play this in the interest of time, but this is essentially a contact center integrating voice analysis. As a user is communicating with a contact center operator, saying, hello, my name is whatever, they're being authenticated via their voice. You can also do it in the app. Moving quickly along because of time, you may have heard recently that Apple is investing heavily in this, in what's known as the FIDO Alliance, Fast Identity Online, this means. We'll be seeing more from Apple on this, I think, in the coming 6 months, but they're creating basically a biometric-enabled passkeys, which will be shareable and used for authenticating services downstream. So a lot of activity in this space, a lot of good technology coming. So using a biometric multi-factor authentication, it's convenient, fast, and secure. It can be used for login, account access, stepping up, providing additional layers of security, and minimizing high-risk activity. Where do you provide these capabilities? Typically in 3 areas. eKYC, digital onboarding, remote onboarding, whatever it is you call it in your line of business. So that's typically opening an account, maybe recovering an account, doing loan origination or insurance policies. Whatever the case may be, you need to collect identity data from a user out in the wild. You need to run some assurance over that to make sure it's a real person, real document, not a fraudulent attempt. And biometrics help you do that. Then moving into authentication, so when these new accounts are opened and people are accessing the account, and they have the ability to use the face that they enrolled with to do their authentication seamlessly and without password. Passwordless is the key. And then finally, in the contact center, if you want to enable a voice authentication capability, you can collect a voice sample and then use that to allow users to free speak with their operators while authenticating them behind the scenes as you go. So one platform that does all of those can overall increase your revenue because you've got all coming into one platform as opposed to silos of data and systems. Many ways to really increase your revenue there. But overall reduction of costs we've seen across our customer base is about 25%. There's other soft factors there where you're saving time of people processing accounts, processing account recovery, processing fraud. You know, all of that is eliminated, therefore giving you less time to spend in this space. And then finally, reducing your risk, obviously by increasing your overall fraud detection capabilities and easy to use authentication. You're minimizing that attack vector where fraud can happen and making it much easier to manage overall. And this short video to close.
Want and expect to access new services instantly, even the ones that require proof of identity. Today, with Identity X from Daon, identity proofing and onboarding those new customers is simple, seamless, and yes, instant.
So that's it. With 10 seconds to spare, I think you'll be happy. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have a booth outside. Any questions, please come and see us. We're more than happy to speak with you. Thank you. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend.